Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of the Nerd Bucket Podcast, the only podcast on the internet to get you your nerd universe fix. I am Jimbo of the Jimbo channel on YouTube. The gentleman to my side here is Tyler from MetroidsPrimed, and like I said, this is the Nerd Bucket Podcast. What are we going to talk about today, Tyler? Because there's been a lot of weird shit in the past week.
There definitely has. You want to start off with news today, or do you want to go with what we've been playing?
Well, let's do what we've been playing, because mine is short and sweet. I've only been playing one game, which was a recent pickup for me.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll start. Let's see. Recently, Best Buy had a pretty sweet deal on an Xbox One game that I have been putting off buying for a while. And for any of you guys not out there in the know, a friend introduced me to this program at Best Buy, and I cannot recommend it enough. Seriously, no bullshit. I think it's called the Gamers Club program, where you give them like $30 and then you're good for 2 years and you get 20% off any new game. No limits. Meaning you could buy 100 games in a year and you'll get 20% off. So when you buy a new Xbox One, PS4 game, Wii U game, whatever, that's normally $60, you get it for $48. You can't beat that. I mean, like, seriously. For example, on the Fallout 4, the Pip-Boy edition, I saved $25 on that purchase.
Oh, wow.
So in that one purchase, it almost entirely paid for itself, and I bought several games since, Batman and stuff and pre-orders and everything like that. So for $30, man, like in 2.5 games, you're going to get your money back, and it's good for 2 years. That's a pretty sweet deal. Anyways, as far as what I've been playing, they had a pretty sweet deal on Far Cry 4, which I heard was a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of the Far Cry series. Loved playing the last one with my buddies. My only complaint would be that the co-op was very limited to like specific missions. But in the new Far Cry, it's like open world co-op. It almost kind of reminds me of the Mercenaries games, like Mercenaries 2, World in Flames, and stuff like that, where it's like a big sandbox of just shit you can blow up. And I think I just passed Act 1. And for all of you out there interested, as an FYI, you have to get past Act 1 before you can do open world co-op. Like, it will tell you that co-op has been unlocked once you pass it. But the upside is Act 1 is like 3 or 4 missions. You could probably blast through it in an hour if you were hauling ass and you're decent at Far Cry games. I have not had a chance to play a co-op. I'm hoping to do that tonight. But the game itself, I think, is fantastic. Like, Far Cry to me has never been a AAA game, but it's been like a really solid B+ game. Like the best B+ game that you could ever find. The whole open world thing on this one, excuse me, is awesome. The map itself is huge. I mean, almost not quite like Skyrim huge, but definitely big. You've got a really big world to play in, and a lot of really weird shit happens when you play this game. It just shows like the kind of the randomness of the AI engine as far as what can happen. So you're in kind of like a Tibetan type of country this time, like a lot of mountain regions and stuff instead of the usual tropical theme of Far Cry. So you're going up a lot of hills and mountains and things this time. Some of it's snow, some of it's kind of lush, kind of tundra type stuff. So I was walking around one time, just, looting stuff, hunting animals. That's a big part of the game, to make pouches and shit. And I see on my radar that there's like a bunch of bad guys. Like, and I'm looking around for him and I don't see him. I'm like, where the hell are they? It says they're like right over there. And I can hear them shouting and stuff, I'm like, this has got to be a glitch or something. I can't figure out where they are. Like, the map says they're right in front of me, but I'm like, dude, there's nothing there. And then, like, I'm just standing there, and I shit you not, I wish I had the wherewithal to have said Xbox record that, which is such a handy feature if you have an Xbox One. I've recorded so much funny shit doing that. I kid you not, dude. The freaking this truck comes flying down this hill, like sliding at first and then rolling end over end, and it's flinging the dudes' bodies out of the truck. Like, I guess they were trying to drive down the hill to get me and they fucked up. But I mean, this was not choreographed. This is no smoke and mirrors or anything. This is a totally random event in the game. And next thing I know, like, bodies are flying out. And by the time the truck hits the ground, like 20 feet in front of me, they're all dead. I was like, what the fuck just happened? I was like in awe. I was like, what?
That
like,
was
and it
awesome.
Wasn't I was like, this was amazing. Like, this shit happens? And I just had to stand there for a minute and be like, I have no words right now. This is amazing. And there's just all kinds of little zany things that you can do. They have like a little one-man helicopter that you can fly around the map in. They have hang gliders, zip lines, so you can get from point A to point B. You can ride motorcycles, cars, all kinds of stuff. And a lot of RPG elements, upgrading guns and stuff like, of course, the Far Cry franchise is known for. It looks great on the Xbox One. I know it's not a true next-gen game since it was available on the Xbox 360, but it's definitely a step up. The texture's a little bit more polished. The world's a little bit more lush. Loading times are a little bit quicker. Not too big of an install, but I mean, other than that, dude, Best Buy had a deal on it for $20. So that means for my Gamers Club program, I got it for 16.
Wow.
For a brand new Xbox One game that hasn't actually been out all that long. That was a 2015 release. So it's like, you can't beat it. Just keep your eye on Best Buy, guys, on the website. Seriously. They have smoking deals every now and again on basically new stuff that you can get for really cheap. But that is literally the only thing that I've played so far this week. So I'll turn it over to you, my friend. What have you been playing?
I've been really in the mood for beat 'em ups this week, and
okay,
I've been playing basically to me, two of the best beat 'em ups for their respective systems. And on the Sega Genesis, I've been playing a lot of Streets of Rage 2, and having a lot of fun with that. And today I was playing a lot of Turtles in Time, and of course, to me, that's like the quintessential Super Nintendo beat 'em up.
Right.
About the closest thing that we ever got to the arcade game on the Super Nintendo.
Agreed.
But those are great beat 'em ups. Been trying to finish up Muramasa, another great beat 'em up. And also this week I broke out a Xbox Classic, a game that I really can't believe it never got a sequel. It was published by Microsoft Studios. I forget who it was developed by, but Crimson Skies. Do you remember that game?
Oh yeah, I used to love that game.
And it had such great online.
It did.
For the Xbox, and that was back when there weren't a whole lot of games that were online enabled for Xbox. Because I remember pretty much like one of the first games that we started playing online on the original Xbox was Crimson Skies, and then the other one that we played a ton of course, was like Halo 2, which was the quintessential, first-person shooter online. But that's pretty much all I've been playing this week, were those four games. But having a lot of fun with that.
I have a Crimson Skies story for you. It's very short, but this is honestly in my top 5 of like the coolest things I've ever done in a video game. Okay, so I'm going to pull a serious nerd card here. Do you recall in Empire Strikes Back where Han Solo and Princess Leia and Chewie are on the Falcon and they're kind of outrunning a few TIE fighters on that big asteroid that they're hanging out on? Okay, and Han kind of pulls this maneuver where he's flying towards this kind of crevice that's basically like this, and he does like this perfect rollover to go through the crevice and like uprights it perfectly on the edge.
Right.
I did that exact same thing in Crimson Skies. And I didn't even intend to do it. Like, I just saw this thing I had to roll through, and my roommate at the time was sitting next to me. He was like, okay, that was seriously fucking awesome. I don't think I could do it again if I had to, but it was just like my thumb coordination was just right on the money that day for some reason. I got it on the first try. I was like, okay, Han Solo moment. Check that off the bucket list. So, no, yeah.
I can't.
Crimson Skies, thumbs up.
I really don't understand why that game didn't get a sequel, because from everybody that I've talked to that played it, they loved it, and I assume it sold pretty well for the Xbox. But that was, I guess toward the end of Microsoft Studios days. I want to say one of their last games that they put out was like Halo Wars, maybe, and that's after they shut shop up on them. But I know that was on 360, but I mean, they put out some really good games on the original Xbox.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and it's aged really well. Some of those original Xbox and PlayStation 2 games, you pop in and it's definitely not quite what you remembered when you were playing it back in the day, but this one's aged really well, and it's still a hell of a lot of fun. So
it's funny you mentioned Halo 2. That's actually how I obtained my copy of Crimson Skies when I went to the Halo 2 launch, which was the first midnight release I'd ever went to. That was like probably the first time that I remember like a game release being transcendent of game culture, like a really big deal where there was like a line at the store and everything. All the GameStops were doing it. A member of the Washington Redskins was actually there to get his copy. Dude pulls up in like a freaking $500,000 Mercedes. We're like,
Nice.
who's that? He's like, oh, it's so and so from the Redskins. I was like, he's a gamer? And he's like, well, I guess so. And they had a little, they're giving away little prizes and things like that, little raffle drawings. And dude, ladies and gentlemen, I never win any of those. I am probably the most unlucky raffle winner ever. I never win shit. But the first number they called was mine. And they gave me a copy of Crimson Skies, brand new. I got a little Halo lanyard and I think a keychain and stuff like that. So if it wasn't for that, I don't know if I would have originally had Crimson Skies. But I never sold it. That was a keep for me. Kept it throughout the years. I was like, no, I'm never trading this one in a GameStop. This is a fucking awesome game.
I actually didn't buy my copy either. My friend Dane had he had a copy of Crimson Skies, and he lived in the neighborhood there in town where we went to school, and he always used to have like a ton of people over at his house, and people used to steal his games all the time. Like they would steal his Xbox.
Oh,
did
you jack his game?
I stole it. I was like, dang,
God.
look. I was like, let me just keep this for you. I was like, it's gonna get stolen. I was like, I'm gonna keep it safe for you. So actually, when I was playing it this week, I sent him a picture of the game. I'm like, I still got your game, buddy. I'm taking care of it for you. And it's like been a big joke, after all these years. But yeah, I took his game. I mean, he didn't even have an Xbox at the time, so he was fine with it. He was just like, whatever, dude, just take it. Just take it.
That's awesome.
Well, do you want to move on to TV and movies?
We can do that. I understand you saw Pixels. I did not have a chance to get to see it, and I think I'm about to be thoroughly entertained by your explanation of it.
It was horrible. Horrible. It was...
Okay, good night, folks.
I think a lot of you knew that it was going to be horrible, so, I mean, it's not a big surprise there, but right. It just, like, the plot is so terrible, and, I'm a big Peter Dinklage fan, and he's horrible in this thing. I mean,
wow.
Like, it starts off kind of pretty cool, like, it's these kids in the 80s, and they're going to this arcade that's right about to open up, and it's called like Electric Arcade Land or something like that. And they walk in, of course, like Adam Sandler's character as a kid, he's just a natural at video games, and he goes to the world championships of arcade games, and Peter Dinklage's character actually beats him in a tournament. Nice. And then it like kind of fast forwards like into the future. And Adam Sandler is working for basically like the Geek Squad. And right. For some reason, his friend is now the president of the United States, because wow. Kevin James is very believable as a president. But, at wow. the very beginning of this movie, I just realized, like, Adam Sandler always plays the exact same character in every one of his movies.
Oh, of course he does.
It seems like his movies have become more of an excuse to like get together with his friends and maybe pay homage to like some of his favorite music or stuff he liked in his childhood. But the premise of the movie is just so ridiculous, and the love story in it. The girl that he falls in love with is like a lieutenant colonel or something, and he's like installing her TV, and of course he's like hitting on her. And I mean, not that that's in real life, if your Geek Squad person comes in your house and is installing something and he starts hitting on you, I mean, I think I'd be pretty creeped out by if I was a woman. But I don't know, man, it was horrible. I don't want to, I mean, for people that want to go see it, I'm not going to like spoil the plot of it, but
oh, go ahead and spoil it, dude. We're jumping on the fucking grenade for him.
Well, here. Okay, so as he's installing her TV or cable, whatnot, doing her internet and all that, aliens basically attack the Philippines, and they're they're
what did the Philippines do?
I don't know. I guess the Air Force base in the Philippines, and okay. They, I guess, took like old radio transmissions that we sent up in the 80s as a challenge to them. So they mimicked our old video games, and
Mm-hmm.
so like the first boss is, or the first challenge is like Space Invaders, and then I think like the next one is Pac-Man, and they developed some like basically like a proton packs to destroy the aliens, and
Wow.
the who knows what technology they're using to destroy these aliens, and then the last was like Donkey Kong, and of course at the end of the movie, he like throws a hammer at Donkey Kong, because that's exactly what you do in the game, right? I mean,
Right.
you get up to the platform, and his platform falls out from under. And there's like no part where you throw a hammer at Donkey Kong, and like he says like the cheesiest line at the end. He's like, and this, it goes back to like the beginning of the movie. He asks her if she wants to kiss him while he's installing the internet in her house, and he's like,
Mm-hmm.
Nerds kiss better, because we appreciate it more, or whatever. And then at the end of the movie, they're kissing. He's like, I told you nerds kiss better. It's just horrible. I fell asleep during it for part of it. It was that bad.
Wow.
So it was more, and it wasn't really even. My girlfriend was more the one that wanted to watch it, but I really wanted to just see. It's like a train wreck. You can't look away.
Nice.
You just have to find out
Wow.
like what happens.
Well, I'm really fucking glad I can go see it. Thanks for taking the hit on that one, dude.
No problem, man. No problem. But yeah,
Ouch.
and I just kind of gave the broad strokes, but there's so many more ridiculous parts that movie. I think he definitely has the Razzie wrapped up for this year.
Good.
What have
What's
you
next?
got in TV and movie news, or stuff you want to talk about?
Well, it appears that you and I are both fans of the TV Strain, which is into its second season now. That's in full swing. For any of you guys not in the know, won't spoil anything for you, but it's kind of to vampires what The Walking Dead is to zombies. Like this whole kind of outbreak, I guess you could say, that unlike The Walking Dead, where it just kind of throws you into it, this is kind of like you see it unfolding. It starts out kind of small, and in season 2, like the outbreak is kind of starting to get its legs and getting into full swing. It's a really interesting show. It's FX typically has really, really good shows. They do dark really well. Between like things like the Justified and The Shield and all these other shows that they do, like kind of gritty, realistic stuff. They don't pull any punches with the gore, much like The Walking Dead. People's heads getting ripped off and shit. The special effects are awesome. It's produced and was created by Guillermo del Toro, who has actually directed segments of the movie, or segments of the show, excuse me. And it's based on a book that he and Chuck Hogan wrote together. And you can definitely feel his presence on this show with the artistic palette, I guess you could say, between the color palette itself, the costumes, the characters, and everything like that. There's not a lot of CG, actually. They do a lot of really practical shit. Where the villain in this is called the Master, who's like this gigantic freaking Nosferatu-looking vampire who's like 7 feet tall. And he's all prosthetics. It's all done, old school through puppetry and makeup and stuff. And it's really cool because it's kind of something like it tides you over in between seasons of The Walking Dead, where it scratches that kind of same itch, but without drawing things out and making it boring or anything, because it's vampires, not zombies. But much like The Walking Dead, it's a plague. The whole vampire thing is basically a virus that's spreading, and the lead guy is basically with him and his partner. They work for the CDC, I think is when they start.
Right.
Yeah. So he's basically trying to figure out a way to kill this thing, just basically using science. There's an older guy who's kind of been fighting, has been fighting vampires since like the Third Reich. Pretty much, he was in a concentration camp inmate. There's a guy, I cannot remember this guy's name, Like he's kind of like that guy that you've seen in so many movies. I think he's actually a stand-up comedian, if I remember right. You'd never guess it by looking at him, 'cause he's a really massive, jack dude. But he was in not the last Wolverine, but the one before that. He played the Blob.
Yeah, yeah.
He's been in a handful of other movies. He plays a Russian guy this time who's with the Department of Health, and his specialty basically is killing vermin. So to him, like, these vampires are just rats, that just simply need to be disposed of. And he's always spot on with the way he plays his characters. His accent doesn't sound cheesy or anything. His line delivery is really good. And I'm gonna have to watch his stand-up sometime, because I can't imagine that guy actually being funny, like haha funny.
Yeah, I didn't know he was a stand-up comedian. That's pretty cool. He was in the Walking Tall too, with The Rock. He kind of played a henchman. He always is kind of like a really good supporting actor, like the thug type character in a lot of his TV shows and movies I've seen him in.
Definitely.
But yeah, that guy is good.
I don't know about you, dude, but I highly recommend this show.
Definitely
to anyone.
I'm with you on Del Toro. Like, I definitely see his hand in it. You can really, to me, the vampires remind me a lot of the ones in Blade 2. The same.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same.
Because that was his movie,
right?
So.
He directed that, but the mouths open up and they have that sucker thing that comes out. But it really, parts of it are disturbing. I have one thing that really is bothering me though with this season. This isn't anything that's going to be spoilers for anybody, but during the outbreak of all this. Like, I don't understand, like, why they don't treat it like it's a true outbreak. Like, part of the city is, like, going along like business as usual, Mm-hmm. I mean, if zombies or vampires were, like, out in my neighborhood, I wouldn't be walking around, going to press conferences and stuff like that. And that's my big qualm with it. But, I mean, this season, to me, is really good. I mean, it started off with a bang last year. And for any of you that haven't seen it, basically, like, this plane lands in New York and basically everybody on board is dead when they find it, and they don't know what's happened to them, and it just kind of builds from that, and it's a big mystery a lot of the season. But definitely y'all check that out if y'all haven't.
Absolutely.
I think it's one of those kind of like shows that have been flying a little bit under the radar, and I'd love to see it do well, to get a full run. I think it's one of those great shows that a lot of people don't know about.
Agreed. Let's see. I think we can talk a little bit about the upcoming Johnny Quest movie, which I'm sure probably not a lot of people might have heard about. Okay, so for any of you not in the know, there's an age-old cartoon named Johnny Quest. Which I'm sure at least some of you know about. It's where, if you've ever heard somebody utter the words Simsalabim, that's where it comes from. That was Haji, Johnny Quest's sidekick, would utter that because he had the strange Indian voodoo magic or something. And it's basically about a guy named Johnny Quest whose father is like a research scientist. And it's got a little bit of James Bond, a little bit of Indiana Jones, just a little bit of sprinkled, into those things. And for the record, it was actually before Indiana Jones, like 20 years before Indiana Jones, where they go all over the world, like getting into adventures, exploring temples and all this other stuff. And it's a really cool show. They're accompanied by this government agent named Ray Spannon, who I think like 6 years ago or something, when they were talking about doing this, they were talking about like The Rock playing Ray Spannon, which at the time I thought was terrible, but now I think it's like the greatest idea ever. I'm like, dude, he'd be the perfect Ray Spannon. Like, just give him the freaking, salt and pepper shaker hair and stuff, because Ray Spannon has white hair in the show. I think that would be amazing. And they go all over the world, like getting into adventures and stuff. And the main reason actually that I wanted to bring this up was a little blurb I heard from Robert Rodriguez, who's writing and directing the movie. And, they were asking him when it's coming out, and he's like, I just finished the script, I'm turning it in. And they were asking him, why do this? Because you've already kind of done Spy Kids. He's like, well, the difference between this and Spy Kids is, like, Spy Kids is like a kid movie. Like, that's who I made it for. This is kind of a grown-up movie. It just happens to have a kid as one of the characters. And that really struck a chord with me, man, because I remember watching the revival of this show that they did when Cartoon Network first came out. They did like I think a season or two of Johnny Quest brand new. And I remember it being like, dude, this is definitely not for kids. Like, it's not like R-rated or anything. I'd call it a strong PG-13 probably, but like guys getting shot with guns and them like decomposing, right in front of the guys into like
Oh
a puddle
wow.
of mush and shit. I was like, yeah, this has some teeth to it. It's got kind of an edge, and it's an action show. Like, it's not silly and slapsticky, like Scooby-Doo or the Jetsons or anything like that. Like, this is like an action show that just happens to have a kid as one of the characters. But I mean, is he the focal point? Yeah, but I mean, he's not leading around like his idiot father, like Inspector Gadget, where it's Penny who's basically smarter than he is. Like, his dad's like one of the top research scientists in the world, who's, Johnny is just kind of along for the ride, I guess, getting his education via world experiences. And I personally think that it's in really good hands. I think Rob Rodriguez is the perfect guy to do this, where he's kind of going to mix a little James Bond, a little bit of Indiana Jones, but keep the flavor of the show and it's probably going to be a PG-13, which I think is what it should be. Enough for the grown-ups, but still kid-friendly enough where you could bring your kids to see it without giving them nightmares for too long. So thumbs up, Robert Rodriguez. I'm looking forward to that.
I actually never have watched any Johnny Quest, so
Oh, it's awesome, dude.
I definitely need to check that out then.
If you do it, watch the revival
Okay.
that they did in the late 90s. The Cartoon Network one, it preserves the spirit of the show. Like, it's still Johnny Quest, but they update it in a way that I thought it was like the way you remake cartoons correctly. It's got the look and the feel of it, but it becomes a little bit more relevant, a little bit less dated.
Okay.
So check that shit out, y'all. So, I guess we should talk about something now that we're both probably pissed off about. I know I am.
I can't believe we haven't talked about it yet, honestly.
I know. I totally forgot. I guess I was trying to block it out. Like,
I
this
think
movie doesn't exist. This movie. La, 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 la,
I think I was too.
All right. So for all three of you who aren't actually in the know about this, we're gonna freaking smack you in the face with some nerdage right here. Okay, so there's some brainiacs in Hollywood that seem to saw fit to do pretty much the exact wrong thing to do with a remake, which is shit on the original. Before we get any sexism comments or anything like that, guys and gals, just hear us out on this. This really isn't a gender debate. It's honestly not. This is more just not fucking with a formula that works. So, the Ghostbusters. I would say, if you asked any person who's our age, who lived through the 80s, to name what they would think the top 3 movies that would represent the 80s really well, I would almost guarantee you that 90% of them would have the Ghostbusters in that list. Like, another would probably be Back to the Future, maybe The Breakfast Club,
I was
The
about
Goonies.
to say Breakfast Club would be
Like, those would probably be the top 4, movies that people would name, I would say. Because, you gotta have a John Hughes movie. So, basically, what Hollywood is doing, and guys, like, I had hope even when they announced that they're basically ditching the all-male cast and going all-female, and it's Melissa McCarthy, who's, let's face it, she's the female Kevin James, who plays the exact same fucking person in every movie. She's the obnoxious fat girl. Like, I'm not saying that to hate on fat people. It's just her weight is the constant source of all of her jokes, other than her stupidity, which to me is like the mark of a really bad comedian. I mean, that would be like Eddie Murphy doing 100% of his jokes about being black. Does he have jokes about that? Yes, but is that like all of his material? No, he's the smarter comedian than that. Or Chris Rock, more recently. No, he's a craftier guy than that. He can come up with more shit. So it's basically Melissa McCarthy, one of the chicks from Bridesmaids, and 2 other women that you've never fucking heard of, basically playing the 4 Ghostbusters. So even when I heard that, I was like, well, maybe they'll find a way to make it funny, So recently we've been seeing some pictures, and I'm trying to think of a non-cock way of saying this, and I don't think there is one. Like, well, first of all, their uniforms in this, they look like city sanitation workers. I really don't know how else to say it. I mean, they don't. Like, what? All right, if you had to pick one word, Tyler, and this hasn't been pre-rehearsed, guys. I want to see if Tyler will actually say this. If you had to pick one word to describe the original Ghostbusters uniforms, like if you had to relate it to something that already exists, what would you say it looks like?
I don't know. I don't know what I would relate it to. Maybe like a. I mean, it's almost like combat fatigues for, for a ghost hunter. For somebody that's.
You're warm.
What were you thinking?
Flight suits.
Flight suits. Okay, yeah.
It kind of looks like a jumpsuit or a flight suit in the Air Force. Just khaki, which theirs never are, but it's a onesie, almost like mechanics overalls. Sort of, just a little bit more refined with pockets and stuff. These, seriously, guys, they look like they should be picking up my fucking garbage.
They really do. Look,
they really do.
They have like fluorescent orange on them, I believe.
They do. They have like the reflector shit.
So when they're dumping the garbage, nobody will hit them.
Yeah. What does that have to do with busting ghosts?
Right.
Okay. I thought women were better at fashion than men, but apparently not. Okay, so then we move on to the proton pack. Which they have shown. Okay. Is it the general shape of the original proton pack? Yeah, sort of. I mean, it's not radically different, but guys, all right. I'm guessing that Egon Spengler was a hell of a lot better engineer than these four ladies, because what he built looks like something that fucking NASA would build. And what these chicks apparently build themselves looks like the fucking Mythbusters built it. Like in their garage. Like, I'm not, knocking whether or not it works. It's just the build quality looks like they threw it together with spare parts instead of actually engineering it the way Egon did, where it's, he builds this thing to spec, like it's put together like a Ferrari. And then we get to Ecto 1, which I'm not as upset about that. It is still a Cadillac, which I guess counts. The original one was. The original one actually was an ambulance, an original ambulance. I think this one's a hearse. So that's not that big of a stretch. I guess I have less of a problem with that, but it's not like we're against girls being in movies. Not at all. Like, I think it's awesome that girls are kicking ass in movies. I think it's awesome we're going to get a Wonder Woman movie. I think that's fucking amazing. But I don't understand this need in 2015 to constantly inject the female character into things. Like, it's like there's this aura of people that feel they have to stuff this into movies where it simply doesn't belong. I mean, what's next? Is James Bond going to be a fucking woman? Is Indiana Jones going to be one? Is fucking Wolverine going to be a woman? Like, where does it stop? But see, the part that really irks me, Tyler, is if the situation were reversed on this, there would be an uproar about this. We'd be like, no, you're not doing that. Like, that's against women, blah, blah, blah. No, there's nothing about this that's right. Like, seriously. First of all, in the first fucking place, you should not be remaking the Ghostbusters at all, because you're only supposed to remake crappy movies. The Ghostbusters is a nearly perfect movie. You cannot do better than they did. I will say this. I will go on record and say it is physically fucking impossible to make a Ghostbusters movie that is better than the original. Because they tried, and the second one wasn't as good as the first one. It was okay, but the first one was perfect. It really was.
I'm not against any of the cast or any of that. I don't have a problem with Melissa McCarthy. She's a little bit too crude for my taste, but my issue is more along the same thing with you: is why mess with something that's perfect? We've seen this so many times in just the past few years. Like, the first Conan the Barbarian was an amazing movie. I mean, to me, it was like the perfect 80s action movie and a great representation of Conan the Barbarian. And Arnold Schwarzenegger was actually on Howard Stern not too long ago, and he gave a great interview talking about the director and what all they required of him before he actually even filmed it. He had to take like a year or two of like sword training just to learn it and all that. And the original is such a classic, and it doesn't feel, even if you watch it today, it doesn't feel that dated. And you take something like that and you reboot it, and the newest one's garbage, and it almost like tarnishes our memories of the original. And you know, I was kind of the same opinion when I first heard they were making a new Predator movie. And you know, of course, the Predators movie ended up being not a reboot, but kind of a separate story, and I thought it was really good. But you know, why not? And I don't even know if is this considered a reboot, or are they taking over for like the old cast, or what? I haven't heard anything about
sequel.
that. Okay,
it is not a sequel, so it's a complete reboot.
That would, if you had maybe Dan Aykroyd and a couple of the guys maybe coming together, and I guess like handing, you know, the torch over to them, and it was maybe on in the future, and they were getting ready to retire or something, then yeah, you know, maybe I could see that. Maybe that was like one of their kids or something like that. But if it's like a complete reboot, I'm not for it at all. I think you're taking something that's pretty perfect and just totally ruining it. And I mean, how many times do reboots actually work? Most of the time, they're not successful. I mean, I can't name hardly any reboots. I can't even think of one off the top of my head that's been really successful. I mean, take for instance the Ninja Turtles that just came out. You've got, our technology has increased, you know, so much, but yet that original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with the Jim Henson suits, you know, I mean, it's still, and the animatronic faces, it's still so much better than the CGI version that just came out. And you know, I don't understand it. I don't know why they keep going back and wanting to remake it, other than they've just run out of ideas. And there's plenty of people out there that, and I know this is a big debate with comic books these days. There was a big issue with who they just cast for Spider-Man, and I think in Stan Lee's, maybe Stan Lee has a say-so in like who they cast for Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is a teenage Caucasian, and I guess they got some flack for not, you know, attempting to cast a black, you know, person in that role. But you know, I mean, why don't we create new characters? And that was basically what Stan Lee said, was, you know, that's not who Spider-Man is. Spider-Man is a white teenage boy, and you know, why do we need to you know, force something into a role that, you know, it wasn't meant to be? And you know, I think we can use that example for Ghostbusters. You know, we're taking the original cast, which was so great, you know, and I hate that Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray could never get on the same page to make any more. I think Bill Murray was basically the holdout all these years, because I'm sure Ernie Hudson would have done it in a heartbeat, and but you know, it never seemed to happen. And I know Dan Aykroyd's really lobbied for another Ghostbusters, but you know, I'm with you on this. I think they should leave something that's perfect alone.
Agreed. And God, I don't want to see this movie. Oh God, I'm dreading it coming out.
I think I'm going to have to, just to kind of like with Pixels, just to see what they did. But I mean, that's the bad thing, is like everybody's going to. The great thing about creating a new property is you're not compared to something that was so beloved by a generation, or you know, by individuals. I mean, you've got all these people that are in this new movie are going to be, you know, basically compared to the old one, and I don't think they're ever going to be able to reach those expectations. So you're almost like basically resigned to fail in that, unless it's just like, you know, a surprise to everybody and it's amazing. But I just don't see it surpassing the original.
I don't either.
Do you want to
with you on that
talk about the Killing Joke? animated
I
movie?
do want to talk about that. Okay, so in the past few weeks, Mark Hamill, who's probably the most famous person to ever play the Joker because he's done it the most times. Played it on the animated series. He's done it for a lot of the video games, a lot of the animated movies, and he has said that for a while now that if he got a chance to do it one more time, and according to him, this is basically going to be it. Like after this, he's done. That he wanted to do it in a Killing Joke animated movie if they ever did one. And for those of you not in the know, The Killing Joke is probably one of the most famous Batman graphic novels ever. I'd say it's probably up there with The Dark Knight Returns, as far as just notoriety and the comic generation kind of accepting it as one of the quintessential Batman stories. Basically, it's about how Batgirl becomes Oracle, and it's, in my opinion, probably the greatest story arc of the Joker ever. Like, it personifies what makes him who he is, where he's got a chance to kill Batgirl because he finds out where she lives and stuff like that, and he's got her dead to rights with a gun. And instead of doing that, he basically puts a bullet through her spine and paralyzes her because that would be funnier, to Batman. Like, ha ha, he he, look what I did. And it's so kind of painful actually just to go through it and read it because you just see how demented and sick this dude is. I mean, he's just a to the bone psychopath. So they're doing an animated movie of it. It's Warner Brothers and DC Comics, which I guess you could probably pull this off as a PG-13, but man, this is going to be a dark fucking animated movie. I mean, this is one of the darkest Batman stories out there that does not have a happy ending at all. Like, this is just absolutely dark. So I'm looking forward to doing this. I've always felt that Mark Hamill was, to me, he's the voice of the Joker. Like, and he always will be. One of the best things I've ever seen him do was he was at a convention or something like that, and somebody in the audience stood up and they asked him to say Heath Ledger's line, "Why so serious?" And he did it better than Heath Ledger did because he did it in the Joker voice. It was just fucking perfect, man. I was like, God, why didn't they have him play the Joker? So I for one, am really looking forward to this. The DC animated movies so far, I've really liked. Between the Justice League ones that they've done, the Superman and Batman ones, each of those things individually. I think there's a Flash one recently that I haven't seen, but they've just been cranking them out as of late, and these things have been top notch. The Green Lantern one really sticks out for me as the Hal Jordan story. So looking forward to this. Thank you very much, Mark Hamill, for agreeing to do this one last time.
Yeah, he definitely was great in the animated TV show and the games until he retired. But I'm glad he's coming out of retirement to do this because he really does personify the Joker, especially.
He really
he's a great voice actor.
Indeed. So shall we move on to game news?
Yeah, let's move on to that.
All right.
I'll start off with the story I was reading the other day that a game that I never actually played because it was on the Wii U is actually coming to Xbox One, PS4, and PC, and that's Zombie U. And that was one of the games, I believe Ubisoft does it. And that was one of the games that I was really wanting to play, but just wasn't on the Xbox One or the PS4. And I definitely am excited to play that now that it's. I want to say it's coming out later this year. But
do you have a Wii U?
I did, but I actually sold it. So
Tyler,
I know I need to get another one.
Oh, dude, that's actually a really good game. That was the first game I got with my Wii U.
Was it? Last year when I was starting, I actually started a business last year. And it's doing really well right now, but I had to get some capital to start the business up, and I actually had to sell the Wii U. At the time, I really wasn't playing it that much, and it was just sitting on the shelf, so it made for some quick capital to put in the business. So that's something I've actually been meaning to get this year because I'm really excited to play Mario Maker. there hadn't really been anything coming out lately that has made me want to get it again, and until Mario Maker comes out. So I said I was going to get another one by the time that came out, and definitely, before the new Zelda comes out. So don't worry, I'll have one again. I just had life came up, life issues. So, but
I think it's worth it just because it makes a really smart use of the gamepad. Like it's your inventory system and everything, and when you're fumbling through your backpack, you don't have to go to a menu screen or anything. It's all right there, and like your character on the screen will like take off their backpack, put it down, and start like ruffling through it. Your map system, your ability to equip guns and everything, you don't have to waste buttons. On the control pad with actually utilizing that. You can just tap your little menu right there. So,
well, in that case, I
I
might just end up getting it on the Wii U then whenever I get it again, because I mean that sounds really cool. Like
it is
really what I was wanting from the Wii U, like utilization like that when they first came out with it. Now some of the games, don't use it as much, but yeah, that's really cool. Like I like that idea.
Oh, it is. When you go up to doors and everything, you have to enter codes. You do all that on the gamepad.
Yeah.
Just all kinds of little things like that. Like to get zombies off you, shake the gamepad. Just little things like that, and just the fact that when you die in this game, your character dies for real. Meaning they never come back, and you start off as a different character. So the first thing you have to do basically is track your other character down because they've got your backpack with all your shit. So you're starting off with like the very bare basics, which really gives you a need to want to stay alive. Like it adds to the intensity of the game just because it can be really frustrating to get all your shit back. Especially if you're really far into a map, then you got to travel all that same way again with very basic tools, none of the shit that you had before. So it definitely gives you an incentive, and it's pretty easy to die in this game. I wouldn't call it like NES hard or anything, but you definitely got to watch your ass. Faux show.
And then the next thing I wanted to talk about was I was reading an article on Kotaku this week that said that in the future that we might be able to stream PC games through the Xbox One. And I wonder if just thinking out loud, like, does the PS4 I wonder have that same capability as the Xbox One, or is it maybe just because it'll be running a version of Windows on the Xbox One with the new updates? So I thought that was pretty cool. I wonder what the lag will be on that, and but that'd be a neat alternative to Steam if you wanted to play PC games and you didn't necessarily want to buy a Steam machine, so a Steam box. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I think that might be unique to the Xbox One. The whole Windows 10 cloud thing is giving them a little bit of an advantage, and a lot of people gave them flack, when that first came out, saying like, "Oh, you're never going to use that" and stuff. I think all those people are going to eat their words, and that's going to be part of the future of video gaming. I'm
hearing some pretty positive things about my Windows 10. It seems like a lot of people are giving it the thumbs up that have used it. I haven't got it on any of my computers, but it looks pretty good from what I'm seeing.
I'm downloading it as soon as we're finished with this podcast, actually.
Okay.
So I'll let you guys know next week.
Well,
so what's next?
What have you got, buddy?
I've got a couple things. First is a big I told you so, because we talked about this last week, and I'm going to go on record as saying I pretty much called it. So we talked last week about the Resident Evil 2 HD remake, which was fan generated, where they basically took Resident Evil 2 and plugged it into Unreal 4. And it looks amazing and all this stuff. So Capcom has actually come out in this past week and asked, if we were going to do Resident Evil 2 and remake in HD, what are the things that you guys would want to see? And I seem to remember you and I posing that same question to him last week. It was like, why doesn't Capcom just release this? Why don't they just hire this guy and, and just make this thing an official release, or at least have him give them the code and shit, and they'll have their engineers go over it, and make sure everything's up to snuff. Because if just one guy's doing this, basically, there's going to be bugs. You know, there's going to be game crashes and shit. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. I'm all for indie devs doing their thing, but they simply don't have the resources and the time, and the bodies, basically, to go through and test these things and make sure that they're tip-top and that they're not going to crash every 8 seconds on you. So, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this guy's got it down to science, but...
Well, you know, I think that also shows like how out of touch Capcom is. Like, what do they mean? What do we want to see out of a Resident Evil?
We want to see this.
We want to see Resident Evil 2 in HD. I mean, that's all. Like, give us the exact same game, but update the graphics. That's all you have to do, Capcom. It's not hard. I mean, you know, you don't have to take a poll. Like, people love Resident Evil 2. People love Resident Evil 3. I mean, you know, just do what some of these other companies are doing. Like, you know, put a new, fresh coat of polish on the game. You know, bring it up to today's standards on the graphics, and, you know, release it. Because, you know, I feel like a lot of these other games that they've put a fresh coat of paint on, and it looks, you know, some of these games don't age well. And I know, going back and playing the first Resident Evil, like it
looks like crap, bitch.
It does. I mean,
it's too polygony and blocky and shit.
It's hard to play, but, you know, 2, 3, and on from there are fine. But, you know, especially the first one when they redid it. But yeah, I mean, 2 and 3 would be great if they would do an HD of both of those.
Agreed.
And I would happily hand them my money.
Speaking of Capcom, as they seem to be in several of our news bits here. So they recently announced, and this is a good thing that they're doing, that the upcoming Street Fighter V, all the stuff and characters and everything, you can either get via DLC if you don't want to wait, or you can actually unlock it.
That's
so
cool.
There won't be any required, you know, money transactions to actually get a character or something. You can just bust your ass and unlock it the old-fashioned way, like we did before every game was online compatible. And this actually touches on a greater subject to me, Tyler, because this has definitely become a trend that I think kind of culminated recently with I think it was Evolve when that came out, where the amount of DLC for this thing literally more than doubled the price of the game if you actually got everything. Like, you'd have to spend like $160, $170 to get basically everything, you know, all the missions, costumes, and stuff. And it's really one big con when you think about it, because if all this DLC is basically planned before the game is actually released, that means it's already being worked on, and they're just taking it out of the game and charging you later for it. Like, it's not like they release the game and then, you know, the devs get on it a few months later and start working on a patch, and then they charge for that. Okay, yeah, I understand them having to bill for that because that's man hours that they had to put into it. But if you're doing this shit from the beginning and you're just removing crap from the game just because you want to, you know, rake us over the coals and take more money out of our wallets, that's really stupid. I mean, that really is. That you have to do things like this just to get money out of things. And a lot of people are saying, like, you know, well, you know, that's the only way that the game companies make money and blah, blah, blah. Guys, bullshit. That's like the biggest load of crap I've ever heard in my entire life. Video games make more money than movies do. They are infinitely more profitable than movies are. Video games lately sometimes cost almost as much to make as a Hollywood blockbuster. I mean, like a Call of Duty game is like $100 million game. But the thing is, guys, I mean, when they put out a COD game, they've made back their money in the first 5 minutes. You know, and everything after that is 100% profit. So as long as it's a title that actually sells, even if it's costing them, you know, $20-30 million to make the freaking game, which is still a little bit high, they're going to make it back. I mean, the game sales, because we're not talking about a $10-12 movie ticket here. We're talking about $60 a pop. You know, that gets up to the millions really quickly. You know, that's why video games are such a huge industry these days. So I, for one, I hope more companies jump on this trend that Capcom's starting, where you can choose to buy it if you like, but if you want to just grind through it and unlock things, you can. I think that's the way it should be. I don't think it should be required.
Yeah, that's a good move by Capcom. They've gotten in trouble with fans a lot recently on questionable download content on their games, like just silly stuff that should be included. for free, and that's a move in the right direction for Capcom. If they can get their act together with the Mega Man stuff, I think they'd be definitely moving in the right direction.
Agreed. So what's next, brah?
Well, since we're kind of talking about Capcom, this actually kind of came out last night. Mighty Number 9, even though of course it's in Capcom, but it's the Mega Man kind of remake from Inafune. It actually kind of quietly got pushed back to 2016. The company actually hasn't officially made an announcement yet, but a lot of websites reported that the publisher moved it back to 2016. They do placeholders on websites, like kind of just saying, when the game's going to release, but it looks like it's moved back to 2016. And I was actually telling Jimbo this before the podcast, but that's becoming a pretty frequent thing with Kickstarter games. I know I had actually backed the Pure Solar HD remake on Kickstarter, and it was scheduled originally. It said it had a release of 2013, December 2013, but the campaign was actually in 2013. And for all of you who know, Watermelon is the developer for that. It's an RPG for the Sega Genesis, and they, on the HD remake, they were going to port it to the digital consoles for all the systems and make a Dreamcast version. And so I figured it'd probably take them, probably into 2014 toward the end of it. But actually, I just got an email probably within the last week that said they were planning on having everything shipped out by the end of September 2015. So we're talking, a full 2 years almost past, when the original game was supposed to ship. And, now that Mighty Number 9 is going to do this, it really makes me leery on Kickstarter games. I also backed a Dreamcast game. I forget the name of it. It was a kind of a bullet hell shooter, and it was developed by a studio out of Germany. And I mean, for months and months, and it was kind of like a 2-year delay on when the game actually came out from when they said it was. And they just kept giving excuses, and I had enough of it. Like, I was blowing up the comment section of Kickstarter, like saying, where's our game? This is basically fraud or whatever. And the bad thing with Kickstarter is there's kind of a hidden clause or whatever that says, they're not responsible if you don't get paid or whatever. They're just kind of the shell that all this is housed in. Ultimately it's up to the creator. And I basically contacted the company and told them, I haven't got my game, y'all aren't doing what you promised. I want my money back. And they were like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't give you your money back. I was like, well, that's fine, but I'll just call my credit card company and tell them that you fraudulently billed me for something you didn't provide. And then they sent a message back and was like, please don't do that. Listen, if you basically keep it, don't say anything on the comment section, we'll give you a refund for your game. And I mean, just shady stuff goes on some of the games. I'm not saying that's what's happening with Mighty Number 9. I think it's really just such a massive undertaking, probably for a small development studio. And same thing for Watermelon. I know they lost one of their I think the owners of the company here recently, but some of the games that you're supporting on Kickstarter, some of them have had some pretty shady. I know there's been several stories on Kotaku about that, about companies that never bring the product to to fruition after they get backed. And I want to say recently they were trying to remake Shaq Fu,
Yeah, I heard
and
about that.
it was real shady. Whoever the development company for was with that, they ended up canceling the entire Kickstarter basically because a lot of people calling them out on that. So, but I thought that was pretty interesting. But I'm expecting maybe this next week to see something on Mighty Number 9, like officially saying that it got pushed back.
Yeah, it's always a gamble, man. I've never really backed a Kickstarter before, and that's what we're talking about here. Has always been my holdout, is that you're really not guaranteed anything. You know, 'cause it's an investment when you think about it. You know, investments don't
Right.
have guarantees.
I've
If it
never
falls
gotten
through, then that's the way it works.
I've never gotten burned by one yet. I think I probably would have gotten burned by that Dreamcast bullet hell shooter,
Mhm.
but thank God, I got my money back. But that's pretty much everybody else has followed up on everything they did. They said they were going to do. So I've had
That's good.
pretty positive experiences so far, but hopefully that continues.
Yeah, I would have. The first one that I saw that I actually really wanted to back was Bloodstained, but I don't like that it's only coming to PS4 as far as consoles, and the only way you can get a hard copy is via PC. I want to play it on my Xbox One. It's a console game. I don't think Castlevania lends itself well to a fucking PC.
Well,
You know,
see,
when I
and
think
how
PC, I think like Half-Life.
how hard would it
I
be
don't,
to actually make a physical copy? Because
not at all.
originally Shenmue 3 was going to be digital only, and PC was going to be the only physical copy. And they
Right.
eventually, decided to do a physical copy of that. So I was happy with that. But yeah, I'm like you. I want like a physical copy, and I don't. I guess it's the collector in me, or just
Right.
needing to have it there in my hand.
And on top
But
of that, like I don't understand. Like, all right, they're obviously going to port it over to PS4, and it's only going to be digital download because if PC is only getting the physical copy, getting the only physical copy, then that's the only other way you can port it to PS4. How hard would it be to port it over to Xbox One? That supports game downloads.
hmm
That's stupid. Like you're limiting your shit for no reason. You're only losing money because you're shrinking your customer base yourself. I just think that's a really stupid move on their part. I mean, do I get that? Yeah, this dude obviously has a good relationship with Sony because it's a Symphony of the Night guy, and the last one was on Sony, and blah 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 blah. Guys, come on, what's this? That's fucking retarded. Like, it's Xbox One or PS4. They basically do the same thing. It's stupid to put something on one and not put something on the other unless it's owned by those two respective companies.
Or unless
Wh-
they paid you a shit ton of money for the exclusivity
Yeah,
rights. So, and then I
and
can understand, because on the other side of it, like I love when Xbox will get an exclusive, but I mean, now we're at the age now where pretty much everything's cross-platform, and
yeah,
but I actually was going to back Bloodstain, and I just completely forgot about it. Like
don't do it.
I was like, I'm going. Well, I mean, it's too late now, but I was going to back the Kickstarter, but I was like, I'm gonna wait until it gets to the last day, and I forgot to set on Kickstarter. You can actually set a reminder, and I completely forgot to set the reminder to it'll send you an email basically saying it's ending today. Make sure you come back and back it, but I forgot that, so I'll just have to download it, I guess, whenever it comes out.
Yeah, these bastards. So that's about all I got as far as news. You got anything else?
Well, why don't you? I know you wanted to talk about this. You might have forgotten, but
What's that?
the Nintendo's new
Oh
program.
shit! I'm sorry, I did forget about that. Yes,
hmm
thank you for reminding me. Okay, so for any of you out there who've ordered Loot Crate like I have and just been pretty disappointed with it, like I have been, because it's kind of all over the spectrum. Like there's no kind of conformity to it at all. You really, I mean, I guess that's the point, is that you never know what you're going to get. So Nintendo recently discontinued their Club Nintendo program, which I didn't really agree with. I actually wanted that to continue. I liked that program because it rewarded the people who actually were literally paying Nintendo's bills. You know, the more systems you bought, the more games you bought and stuff, the more rewards you got. I was a platinum member for the past couple of years and got the respective rewards. So they canceled that and said they were going to replace it with a new program. And I don't know if it has an actual name yet, but it's basically Nintendo Loot Crate, where you pay a subscription fee and you get a box full of stuff every month that's Nintendo specific. I'm kind of torn on this one, Tyler, because I think that could be really cool. That you get, that that you're getting Nintendo shit every month. That everything in the box will be Nintendo related. Figures, all kinds of little things. But at the same time, I'm already paying Nintendo plenty of money every year. Why didn't they just make this like a requirement for Club Nintendo? Like if you spent so much money in the last year, that would qualify you for the next year or something like that, where you could just get something each month. I get that they got to make money, and this is another revenue stream for them. That's fine. I understand economics. So, on the one hand, will I try it out for at least a month and just see what it's like? Sure. I'll give Nintendo a shot. But at the same time, it's kind of a slap in the face to us Club Nintendo folks who, yeah, I mean, we're buying their games and all their shit. Like, is that not enough? We got to pay something more now, too. But who knows, dude? It could be cool. Like, the stuff they come up with could be epic. It could be amiibos. It could, not that I want any of those, but it could be just like extra shit for games, just all kinds of stuff.
I know the Club Nintendo wasn't around near as long as Nintendo Power, but I had that same kind of melancholy that I got when I found out that they were canceling Nintendo Power, when I found out they were shutting down Club Nintendo. And it was so cool, the very first maybe 3-4 years of it. And then, toward the end of it, you could tell that they were getting ready to shut it down. They never had anything in stock. They never added any cool stuff to it. Like, the last cool things you could get from Club Nintendo, well, the first year, I believe you got a Mario hat. I want to say that was the first reward. Then maybe the second year, they gave you the really cool statue with all the all the Mario characters. And that was really neat. And then the next really cool thing they had was a gold nunchuck.
Yeah.
For your Wii remote. And then the last really, really neat thing that they had was the Luigi's Mansion statue. Yep. And it only had 5,000 of them. I was actually lucky enough to get that before they ran out. But and they had really cool posters and stuff like that one that's behind me. The History of Zelda is one of my favorites. I actually took it and got it professionally framed because I liked it so much. But I was sad when they did that. I mean, there's no telling how much time I spent filling out those surveys for every game.
Oh God,
those are so tedious.
I know.
And then you have to go back after you've been playing the game for a few days, and there was a follow-up survey to get the last 10 coins or something. But yeah, I was sad that they got rid of that. And
me too. And the last prize was so lame. The messenger, it's not even a messenger bag, it's like a flap made of linen of the Zelda thing. I was like, this is it? You guys are going out with this? And
they kind of did a cop out the year before. They, the platinum reward was playing cards, and thank God the secondary reward was a physical soundtrack to Majora's Mask, and I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, it's not maybe up there with some of the statues and stuff like that, but I thought that was a pretty cool reward. But I'm interested to see what's in it. If they do it right, I think it could be really cool. I know with Loot Crate, there's this whole community of people now that if you've got something you don't want, there's a community of people out there that will trade you stuff for it or can buy it off of you and all that. So maybe there'll be a community that's kind of built around trading stuff, that you might not want, because it's kind of a if it's like Loot Crate, I know Loot Crate has a theme every month, and I don't know if some months I just wouldn't be probably interested in anything that came in.
I'll tell you what, dude. You know what really? I just had a really fucking great idea. You know what would really kill this program? I know this is probably never going to happen, but I can tell you how Nintendo could do this correctly.
Put
Okay.
put exclusive amiibos in your loot crate.
No, fuck amiibos. All right, no, not amiibos. No, seriously. Like, would you argue that guys like you and me are basically going to be their demographic?
Oh, definitely, definitely.
We're going to be like their core people, like our age group, our collecting style and stuff like that. We're the nuts and bolts of who they're looking for. Dude, out of the gate, if I run a Nintendo, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna tell the rest of the world what I would do. I would give you a NES cart with the Japanese Super Mario Brothers 2 on it, with the official Nintendo seal on it, meaning an official Nintendo release NES cart, the first one new from Nintendo in 30 plus years. That, I'd be like, you guys have me for life. Like, fuck you, take my money. Like, if I can look forward to, like, let's say one, maybe two of little things like that where they can just come out with a little something, you know, like a little cartridge or something, like, dude, people would be all over that. Guys like you and me would be eating it up. So, yeah, I think that that's a good start. I think that that could be a way that they could really kill it. Or, like, or even just a re-release of an existing Nintendo card, like a gold, you know, Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt or something like that. That'd be fucking awesome. I'd absolutely love that.
Well, I guarantee what this is going to be is it'll probably be a Loot Crate clone, and they'll have like a monthly T-shirt. Probably some statues. I wouldn't be surprised if you were to see like a exclusive amiibo in that.
Oh, I'm sure.
But
I have no doubt about that.
I don't know. I'm interested to see what it is. When did they say like when they're going to roll it out, or?
It's later this year, I think. I don't think they give really a date, but yeah, like you, I'll give it a shot for a month, and it's their, I'm their customer to lose. That's the way I see it. Like they can kill it or they can fuck it up. You know, we'll see what happens.
And then in other news, I was reading an article about Gene Roddenberry this week. Apparently,
we're going ultra nerdy on this one.
That's right. That's right. We're going to the next generation. William Shatner is making a new movie called Chaos on the Bridge, and you know, if you're a fan of Star Trek, you definitely think of Gene Roddenberry's, you know, the visionary creator of the universe, and just kind of a visionary guy, because there were so many things that happened on the original series of Star Trek that were revolutionary for the time. Like, first off, a lead female black character on the bridge. I think Nichelle Nichols was basically the first black woman in a prominent role on TV. And I know Whoopi Goldberg really, she was in The Next Generation, and she, you know, always really looked up to Nichelle Nichols as a kid and said, you know, if this woman can be on TV, you know, I think anything's possible for me. And, you know, she went on to have a very successful career. So a lot of people look up to Star Trek for that, as well as, you know, kind of the visionary technology that they used. A lot of the stuff that's been developed, like touchscreen controls for computers and stuff like that, was actually, you know, something that debuted on Star Trek. Although it wasn't functional at the time, you know, that was our goal, to aspire to that. And a lot of developers said, you know, that's why they created the technology, is they first saw it on there. It's what gave them the idea. Also, the first interracial kiss was on the original Star Trek. So there were all these elements of kind of a utopia in the original Star Trek, and we always attribute that to Gene Roddenberry. Well, anyways, in this kind of new behind the scenes documentary by William Shatner, it kind of really shows a different side of Gene Roddenberry. And of course, you know, this is told by a lot of the producers and executives at Paramount at the time that The Next Generation was being made. And basically, all right, sorry guys, we got cut off there, but basically what I was saying was from a lot of the interviews that they're saying in this new documentary that Gene Roddenberry actually almost killed the series, The Next Generation, before it even started, just by making demands. He actually did not want Patrick Stewart to be the captain on The Next Generation. I thought that was really neat, hearing some of these different perspectives from I forget the producer's name, but he was really a big player in Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, a lot of those. I think it's Brandon Braga or something like that was the guy's name, but he had given some of the interviews on this, and there was a lot of drama apparently with Roddenberry's lawyer, and his lawyer would make all these demands, and it got so bad to the point where the executives at Paramount actually banned the guy from the lot.
Wow.
And at one part they said that the guy actually snuck onto the studio and during like a lunch break and like broke into the computers and was like reading the script or whatever. But
wow.
But take that with a grain of salt, though. I mean, it's somebody's perspective. Of course, Roddenberry, wasn't there, isn't here to defend himself now, but he did make a lot of big decisions for the series. He actually was really. I think he created the character Q, which played such a big part of the Next Generation, so many episodes, and he also wanted an older captain for the Next Generation, more mature captain. And, that was a big theme in the Next Generation. And, of course, Patrick Stewart really, just took on a whole new level of, the Starfleet captain. And I thought that was really interesting. Definitely read the article. It's on IO9. So check that out if you're interested in Star Trek at all. But really, really cool tidbits that, if you're a fan of Star Trek, that you probably never realized. And also, one more point was that if the writer's strike hadn't happened at the end of season 2, the Borg would have been destroyed altogether. So the writer's strike actually helped saved the Borg, and of course that became like one of the best known enemies in the Star Trek universe, and a lot of the best episodes in the entire series were about the Borg. And if the writer's strike hadn't happened, I forget what year it was, maybe 92, if that hadn't happened, then we probably wouldn't have seen the Borg after that last episode, the season finale that year. And just so however it happened, it ended up saving that. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I had no idea.
And we've actually got a reader question.
Awesome.
Not reader, listener question. SNES Mapper on YouTube wants to know what our expectations are on the new Nintendo NX and what would we like to see out of it. So if you want to go ahead, and I'll let you start off with that one.
Sure, dude. I'd love to. Let's see. So as far as what we know, all the latest info seems to point that Nintendo is kind of going the Oculus Rift and HoloLens type of route with this thing, with either virtual reality, augmented reality, or maybe both. Which would definitely be a game changer, and a lot of people are saying that's the future of video gaming. It probably is, at least to some degree. I think more so augmented reality. I think that's definitely going to be the future. Nintendo definitely needs to do something different. they can't just bring out like a powerhouse system like the Xbox One and the PS4. Frankly, because we've already got two of those, and there wouldn't really be any reason for people who already have them to buy something else, just a similarly competing system. That'd be stupid. Even if they had all the same titles, that'd kind of be silly. People would only buy it for the Nintendo titles. So Nintendo needs to do at this point what Nintendo does best and say, fuck the current trends. We're Nintendo. We're going to do what Nintendo does best, which is make really fun toys. They make more than video games. They make like an interactive system in which to play them. And it had, to be fair, it's been kind of hit and miss with Nintendo over the years. They had a freaking home run with the original Wii. They basically, at least I would say, they transcended gamers into straight pop culture. They made it more accessible to casual people. And that, in my opinion, like the Wii was like the first step into games becoming status quo, into becoming part of world pop culture. So I think that's probably their strategy for this, is they need the next game changer. They need to do something that the other two companies really aren't doing, at least yet. And we know Microsoft has the HoloLens, and we know that PlayStation has Project Morpheus, and then there's the Oculus Rift, which is now owned by Facebook. So all the technology's out there, but nobody has really effectively brought it to market yet. It's still in the very early stages. Nintendo needs to lead the pack. They need to be the first to market. They need to make it affordable. They need a system that costs sub $400, with the apparatus, whether it be the lens or headset or whatever. Make the system 300, make the lens 100. That's definitely where they need to be at. They need to be affordable, and traditionally they always have been. The Nintendo systems have always been cheaper than their two competitors, which is one of the ways that they kept up to be competitive. But I just hope that whatever they're going to bring out with Project NX, I hope it's not excessively underpowered, because honestly it needs to be overpowered to do things like virtual reality and augmented reality. That shit eats up a lot of resources. So you definitely need, at the very least, current generation technology to be able to keep up with something like that. So Nintendo, just do what you guys do best, man. Make a really kick-ass toy that we all want to play with, that is going to completely change the way we the way we see and the way we play video games. That's my prediction.
I'm kind of along the same lines as you. I think that if Nintendo were just to come out with a system that's just as powerful as the PS4 or the Xbox One, they're so far behind the game now that they have to do something different. I think if the Wii U probably would have had more first party titles and had been a little bit stronger hardware, that they probably would be fine right now. But I think that they're definitely going to have to do something that nobody's going to expect. And I saw that they've just announced the first, not Nintendo, but there's going to be a Dragon Quest game on the NX, and I think it's Dragon Quest 11, and so we'll see what it is, but what it's going to be like. But I'm with you. I think it's got to be some sort of augmented reality or VR type of apparatus. I just don't, it seems like people's interest in those things are either like they're really interested in it, or it's almost like a fad that people go through for a while. And I've heard really good things about the Oculus Rift, but they're still experiencing a lot of I heard a lot of disorientation while you're playing those games. So, will the kinks be worked out? And, I know that they had said that Dragon Quest was going to come out next year in 2016. So does that mean we're getting a NX in 2016? I mean, doesn't that seem kind of early to you?
A little bit. I would have guessed Project NX would be 2017 because
I
we're
would
already
too,
halfway through. So.
And how big of a selling point is that you have to wait
It's not.
So, why would they announce that now? I don't know. I was kind of confused about that. I was like, does that mean it's coming out next year? But I just don't think that they would have the games developed for it at that point.
You need a way better launch title than a Dragon Quest game to really sell a system. They'd need a Zelda game. They'd need a Mario game, a Metroid game. Like, it would have to be something absolutely AAA.
And the Dragon Quest is huge in Japan, but,
Right.
I just don't know if it would sell enough here, especially if it comes out later than 2016.
Right.
But yeah, I think it'll be ballsy whatever they do. They're going to have something that's completely different than what we're expecting, and I don't think it's going to be a traditional console that we're used to playing. But their last outing with a virtual reality console didn't go so well.
No,
with the Virtual Boy. So
I think, dude, honestly,
might want to test that for if it gives you migraines.
If I were Reggie, I would play that up. When I got on stage to introduce that, I'd be like, I'm here to show you guys Nintendo's next generation virtual reality. And then he like pulls out the Virtual Boy. He's like, oh shit, sorry about that. Like, sorry, wrong system. And then he pulls out the actual thing. I mean,
that'd be hilarious.
They need to be in on their own jokes,
right?
That it was a screw up. It didn't work, but because we're the guys who laugh at that shit, and we're the guys paying their bills right now. So, yeah.
I don't have anything else as far as news, but I was going to tell you a little bit about the book signing I went to this week.
Sure.
I went to, it was about 2 hours from here, to a bookstore, and Ernest Cline was in town to sign his new book, Armada. I talked about it in like the first podcast, I believe. And he was talking about kind of his influences growing up, and he definitely is one of us. The guy's a nerd. He's a gamer. He grew up in a small town in Texas, and like a lot of us, his town didn't have an arcade, and he would have to go a town over to play his games and all that. And he was talking about his influences for some of his books, and I mean, it was like our probably childhood movies, like Star Wars, War Games, Last Starfighter, Goonies. I mean, Buckaroo Banzai. I mean, he was just going through this list of like classics, like 70s, 80s movies that he drew influences on. And the guy is a huge Star Wars fan. And I actually didn't know this, or I probably would have got him to sign the movie for me, but he was sitting there talking about back in the not early 90s, but late 90s, when they first announced that they were making a prequel to Star Wars. And him and his buddies were sitting around talking, and he was like, what would you do, if you found out you had cancer and you died before this new Star Wars movie released? Like, how would you, react to that? And I was like, that's the damn plot for Fanboys, if you've ever seen that movie. Yep. And, he kept asking his friends that. He was sitting there giving like a presentation to us. And I was like, well, that's the plot line for Fanboys. And he kept, asking his friends. He's like, well, I would have to like break into Skywalker, Ranch to, watch the movie before it actually came out. And I was like, man, that is the damn plot line for Fanboys. He wrote Fanboys. He wrote the screenplay for it. I had no idea that I would have brought the movie for him to sign. I had no idea that he wrote that, but he wrote it and said for like 10 years or 9 or 10 years they couldn't get it made, and there was all this like red tape they had to go through to get it made, and then finally like Harvey Weinstein wanted to make it. And they finally got to the point of making it, and they wanted to like completely change the plot, and he wanted to actually make it where like the friend wasn't dying of cancer. And Ernest was like, well, that would have completely destroyed the whole heart of the story, because
Right.
the story, was for them to let their buddy who's dying of cancer, see the movie before it actually came out. And anyways, it was just a really neat story of how that movie came into being, and then how he wrote Ready Player One, which, Jimbo, you've got to read this book, or at least listen to the audiobook. But I mean, it's basically, we're talking about AR and VR. It's basically like a virtual reality world, and it's got all these like classic 80s games influenced in the story, and all these 80s movies, music just referenced all throughout it. And anyways, just how the book came about, and how he wrote it, and then he talked about how Spielberg actually is signed on to direct this movie, and how big of a gamer that that Spielberg was, back in the day. And so we're definitely going to see this movie, Ready Player One movie, and
Awesome.
Spielberg is directing it, and that was straight from his mouth. And for any of you Ready Player One fans, he actually said that when he wrote the book, he has it set up for 2 sequels, so it will be a trilogy by the end of it. And he has done the same thing with Armada. He kind of set it up to where he could have 2 sequels. So that's possible trilogy for Armada and Ready Player One. So we'll have 3 books in each series if it works out to where he wants to do it. He said he wanted to gauge the fans, desire to have a sequel before he actually writes it. But he said before he does any sequels to those books, that he actually has another original idea for another book that he's going to write first, and then he'll move on from that. But he said if he had like one person in mind for the cast of Ready Player One or Armada, if it becomes a movie, is Will Wheaton, just because he did both the narration for both books, for the audiobooks, and how good of a job he did with that. But he actually drives around a DeLorean, and he's got a DeLorean with a flux capacitor in it.
Nice.
I mean, it's basically set up just like the one from Back to the Future, and he also has like the Knight Rider kit in it. And I mean, it's
Wow.
He's got so many like cool things in his car and all that, that he said he basically like did it. So it's like his dream car from his childhood, and B, it's an awesome work expense to drive, to book signings and all that. So
Hell yeah.
I thought that was badass that he had like all that influence into his books and all that. And I mean, you can really tell with his writing. Like Ready Player One was probably one of the best books I've read in the past several years. I mean, I just devoured it like in probably a day or two.
Nice.
But that was cool, and he showed us some pictures. Like, he's pretty good friends with George R.R. Martin, and he let George borrow his DeLorean because George bought like an old school movie theater in like Santa Fe, New Mexico, which I guess is where George lives. And for the opening night, they had Back to the Future playing, so
Nice.
he wanted to borrow that for to open the movie in. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
But that's my nerd activity of the week.
I think you got me beat on that one, but I'll go from nerd to geek since we're making this kind of a tradition. This is Jimbo's Laserdisc pick of the week. For any of you unaware, I actually am a collector of Laserdiscs. Just a really fun hobby. I have nothing against DVD and Blu-ray and all that stuff. It's just something about these. And to be honest, there's actually a few things on Laserdisc that haven't been released yet on DVD. or Blu-ray for that matter. So this, for example, is one of them. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker.
Nice.
The complete thing in order. All the videos, all the music, the story, where you got Michael Jackson running off probably arguably inappropriately with children and turning into a car and then turning into a fucking transformer, and he's fighting, Joe Pesci with a freaking like ponytail mullet who just wants to get everybody high, man. It's so contrived and so forced, but dude, whatever. It's awesome.
Nice.
It doesn't matter. It's bad. It's so bad. Badder than the Power Glove.
Well,
that's.
I think you've convinced me to get a Laserdisc player. I mean,
fuck yeah, dude.
There's a couple of things that I definitely need on Laserdisc, and first and foremost is the original unblemished Star Wars trilogy.
Only format you can watch it on.
Right.
So,
and we'll probably never see the original
no.
movies.
Disney's never going to release them.
I'm sure that was in the deal when Lucas sold that they couldn't touch anything, and I don't think they have the rights anyways for the first three. I think doesn't Fox, 20th Century Fox, still have that?
Probably, yeah. Probably.
So we'll probably never see the original versions unless something amazing happens. So that's definitely one of the ones I would love to have on Laserdisc.
There's a pretty cool box set out there with the original 3 films. So if you want to get rid of Greedo shooting first and all that stupid bullshit, that's pretty much your only fix to get a Laserdisc player. So
cool.
But no, you and I will talk offline about that. There's definitely stuff you need to know before you buy a Laserdisc player, because they're not all created equal at all. They're not.
Well, do you have anything else, buddy? I think that's.
I don't have a damn thing. Nope.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us for the third podcast. Definitely check us out on YouTube at Jimbo's at the Jimbo channel on YouTube.
That's me.
I'm at MetroidsPrimed on YouTube, and we have a Facebook page, and it's the Nerd Bucket Podcast at Facebook. So definitely look us up questions there. Yeah, we definitely need some questions from you guys. We like to read them at the end of the podcast, yes. So we'd love to. We've had some the past 2 weeks, and we'd love to keep having some questions from y'all.
Yes.
On that, and also we are now on iTunes, so hopefully you're listening to us on that or watching us on YouTube right now. But if you're on YouTube and you didn't know that we had the iTunes set up, we definitely do now. So just search for the Nerd Bucket Podcast and you'll find us on there. But
I do have one quick thing, because I had people ask about this. Some of you out there had asked if I was going to put out a Nerd Bucket Podcast T-shirt. Anyone that's watched my channel knows I design my own shirts. I basically have at least one T-shirt for all of my shows. Retro Game Lounge, Retro Game Hall, Dirtflix, and stuff. Working on it now. It'll have the Nerd Bucket Podcast logo on it. I'm going to try and keep it as cheap as I can. So that's the way I do it with all of my T-shirts. It'll probably just be a black shirt with the Nerd Bucket Podcast logo on it. So if you are interested, I will let you guys know when that goes up on the website. So stay tuned. It's in the works.
Nice. Well, that is it, guys, and we will catch you next week on the next episode.
We absolutely will. Adios, everybody.
Later.